Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered how it all began? The vast, glittering expanse above us has sparked questions in the human heart for thousands of years, questions about where we came from, how the stars were born, and what secrets the cosmos might still be hiding. Long before telescopes or satellites, our ancestors crafted breathtaking stories to explain the mysteries of creation, weaving tales of gods, chaos, and cosmic battles that shaped the universe as we know it. These myths weren't just entertainment, they were humanity's first attempts to make sense of the infinite, to find our place in something far greater than ourselves. Think about it, every culture, from the dusty plains of Mesopotamia to the lush jungles of Mesoamerica, spun its own version of the celestial origin story. The Greeks whispered of Gaia and Uranus, the Egyptians worshipped Ra sailing his sun boat across the sky, and the Norse spoke of Ymir's body forming the world from sheer nothingness. These stories are more than ancient folklore, they're a window into how our ancestors saw themselves in relation to the cosmos, a tapestry of imagination and awe that still resonates today. What's astonishing is how many of these myths share eerie similarities, as if fragments of some deeper, forgotten truth linger in our collective memory. And that's exactly what we're about to explore: 25 of the most astonishing, mind-bending myths of cosmic origins ever told. We'll journey across time and continents, uncovering stories where fire-breathing serpents carve rivers in the sky, where cosmic eggs hatch entire universes, and where the stars themselves are the scattered embers of divine battles. These aren't just tales, they're clues to the oldest questions we've ever asked. So if you're ready to dive into the legends that shaped how humanity understands existence itself, keep watching. Because by the end of this, you'll never look at the night sky the same way again. One of the most striking ideas found across ancient cultures is the cosmic egg, a fragile shell holding the entirety of creation just before it burst into being. In Hindu tradition, the Brahmanda, or Brahma's egg, floated in the void of endless darkness before splitting apart to form heaven and earth. The Rigveda describes this moment with poetic reverence, how the golden womb of the egg gave birth to the gods themselves, the shells becoming the dome of the sky and the fractured pieces shaping mountains and rivers below. But halfway across the world, the Chinese told a shockingly similar story. Their legend speaks of Pangu, a giant who slept inside that same primordial egg for 18,000 years before waking to shatter it with his axe. His breath became the wind, his voice the thunder, and when he finally died, his body dissolved into the soil, his veins forming the rivers, his bones the very bedrock of the world. What's fascinating isn't just the shared imagery, it's the eerie consistency in details. Both myths describe the egg as self-contained, existing before time, holding opposites like chaos and order in perfect balance until the moment of rupture. Archaeologists have even found artifacts from the Indus Valley and ancient China depicting eggs with zigzag cracks, suggesting this symbol was more than just a story. It was a sacred concept passed down through rituals. Some scholars argue these parallels hint at an even older, lost origin myth carried along trade routes or whispered between cultures long before written history. Others see it as proof that humanity, no matter where we are, looks at the same sky and asks the same questions. But here's the twist: while the Hindu version focuses on divine forces sculpting the universe, the Chinese tale makes Pangu an active participant, a laborer who literally carves the world with his hands. One is a cosmic explosion of divinity, the other is a gritty act of creation, sweat and toil shaping the stars. Yet both agree on one profound truth, that everything from the tallest mountain to the faintest star began as something small, fragile, and waiting to wake. Now picture this: an entire world balanced on the back of a creature slowly swimming through the stars. The image of the world turtle isn't just a quirky folktale. It's a startlingly persistent idea that appears in cultures separated by oceans and millennia. In Iroquois tradition, the earth formed on the shell of a massive turtle after Sky Woman fell from the celestial realm. Animals dove into the primordial waters to bring up mud, spreading it across the turtle's back until it grew into the land we know today. But thousands of miles away, Hindu texts describe Akupara, a cosmic turtle so vast that its shell supports 8 elephants, which in turn hold up the continents. The parallels are uncanny. Both envision the planet not as floating in empty space, but as part of a living, breathing ecosystem, cradled by an ancient creature whose slow movements might even explain earthquakes or shifting land. What's remarkable is how these myths mirror real-world observations. Early civilizations noticed how turtles carried their homes on their backs, how they surfaced from mysterious depths, qualities that made them perfect symbols for stability and resilience. For coastal tribes who watched sea turtles navigate vast oceans, or farmers who saw tortoises endure droughts, the creature became a natural metaphor for the Earth's endurance. Even the Hindu versions, elephants echo another layer of symbolism. These giants were seen as pillars of strength, their footsteps said to cause tremors. Together, turtle and elephants create a layered cosmology where the planet isn't just a rock, but a living body sustained by other beings. Yet there's a deeper wisdom hidden in these stories. Unlike modern astronomy's cold, mechanical universe, the world turtle myth presents creation as interdependent, a delicate balance where humans aren't conquerors of nature, but part of its intricate web. The Iroquois tale emphasizes cooperation, with animals working together to build the earth, while Hindu cosmology suggests even gods rely on Akupara's patience. It's a perspective that feels oddly prescient today as we grapple with environmental crises and our place in the cosmos. Maybe these ancient storytellers understood something we're still learning, that the world doesn't belong to us. We belong to it, riding on the back of something far older and wiser than ourselves. Deep in the frostbitten heart of Norse mythology stands Yggdrasil, the colossal ash tree whose roots and branches stitch together the entire cosmos. This isn't just any tree, it's the axis of existence itself, a living bridge between 9 wildly different realms, from the glittering palaces of Asgard to the smoke-choked forges of Niflheim. According to the Prose Edda, Yggdrasil's roots drink from 3 mystical wells, each whispering secrets of fate, wisdom, and the inevitable decay of all things. One root stretches into Jotunheim, land of the giants, another coils around the well of Mimir, where Odin sacrificed an eye for knowledge, and the third taps into the murky waters of Niflheim, where the dragon Nidhogg gnaws endlessly at the tree's core, poisoning it from within. But Yggdrasil isn't just a static symbol, it's a battleground. Every day, the squirrel Ratatoska scurries up and down its trunk, carrying insults between the eagle perched at the crown and Nidhogg below, fueling an eternal feud that shakes the branches. The tree bleeds too. When Odin hung himself from its boughs for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, he wasn't just seeking wisdom. He was merging with the tree's life force, becoming part of its story. This idea of a world tree isn't unique to the Norse. The Mayans worshipped Yaxch, a celestial tree connecting the underworld to the heavens, while Siberian shamans described climbing a birch tree to reach the spirit world. Even Hinduism's Ashvatha, a divine fig tree mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, shares eerie similarities, its roots in the heavens, branches reaching earthward, a metaphor for the universe's interconnectedness. What makes Yggdrasil truly haunting, though, is its role in Ragnarök, the Norse apocalypse. Prophecies foretell that when the tree trembles for the last time, its bark cracking as Nidhogg breaks free, the bonds between realms will snap. Stars will vanish, gods will fall, and the earth itself will sink into the sea. Yet even in this cataclysm, there's rebirth. 2 human survivors will emerge from Yggdrasil's hollow trunk, repopulating a newborn world. Modern ecologists see uncanny foresight in this cyclical vision, the idea that ecosystems collapse and regenerate, that death feeds new life. Yggdrasil isn't just a relic of Viking imagination. It's a mirror held up to our own fragile planet, a reminder that even the mightiest systems can fray when their roots are poisoned. Perhaps that's why this myth endures. In an age of climate crisis, Yggdrasil feels less like a fairy tale and more like a warning, a thousand-year-old allegory for balance, resilience, and the cost of neglect. The Norse didn't just see a tree, they saw the universe breathing, a living thing that could thrive or wither based on the choices of gods and mortals alike. And isn't that the same story we're living now? The Aztecs saw time not as a straight line, but as a wheel of destruction and rebirth, a belief carved into their very calendar stones. At the heart of their cosmology lies the legend of the five suns, a chilling prophecy that every era of existence is doomed to collapse under the weight of its own imperfections. Each sun wasn't just a celestial body, it was an entire epoch ruled by different gods, shaped by their rivalries and ultimately doomed by their flaws. The first sun, Nahui-Oslotl, belonged to Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror god of night and sorcery. Under his reign, giants roamed the earth, harvesting maize so abundant it grew wild. But Tezcatlipoca's arrogance fractured his bond with his brother Quetzalcoatl, who struck him from the sky in retaliation. The world plunged into eternal night until jaguars swarmed from the shadows, devouring every last giant. Archaeologists have found colossal bones buried beneath Mexico City's temples, which the Aztecs may have believed were remnants of these giants, physical proof of that first cataclysm. Then came Nahui-Ehecatl, the son of wind, ruled by Quetzalcoatl himself. This was an age of harmony where humans lived simply, nourished by the fruits of mesquite trees. But Tezcatlipoca, seething from his earlier defeat, transformed into a monstrous hurricane and scattered the people into monkeys. Today, you can still see echoes of this myth in Aztec art, monkey glyphs carved alongside wind gods, a warning against pride's consequences. The third sun, Nahui-Quiahuatl, brought a fiery rain under Tlaloc, the storm god. But when his wife Xochiquetzal was stolen away, his grief extinguished the rains, leaving only infernos. The heavens rained not water, but molten rock, and survivors became the first butterfly symbols of transformation in Aztec lore. Most haunting is Nahui-Atl, the fourth sun, governed by Chalchutlicue, goddess of rivers. Her era ended in a flood so vast, humans became fish. Spanish chroniclers recorded Aztec elders speaking of ancient cities submerged beneath Lake Texcoco, a possible folk memory of real pre-Aztec flooding. But it's the fifth sun, Nahui-Olan, our current era, that reveals the Aztecs' deepest fears. This sun, ruled by the war god Huitzilopochtli, is destined to perish in earthquakes. The Aztecs believed they could delay this doom only by feeding Huitzilopochtli with human blood, sparking their infamous sacrificial rites. What's bone-chilling isn't just the violence of these myths, it's their precision. The Aztec calendar stone, rediscovered in 1790, maps these 5 eras with mathematical accuracy, each sun lasting exactly 2,600 years. Modern scholars note eerie parallels to geological epochs. Volcanic activity around 3,000 years ago matches Tlaloc's fiery end, while sediment layers confirm catastrophic floods near the time of Chalchutlicue's destruction. Whether coincidence or coded truth, these stories weren't just tales to the Aztecs. They were survival manuals written in starlight and blood, teaching that humanity's fate hinges on balancing divine forces too vast to comprehend. Long before maps or borders divided Australia, the Aboriginal peoples spoke of a time beyond time, a dimension where ancestral spirits shaped the world through song and story. This is the Dreamtime, not just a myth but a living tapestry woven into the very landscape. Imagine standing at Uluru, that colossal red monolith rising from the desert. To outsiders, it's a rock, but to the Anangu people, it's the physical evidence of a cosmic battle where their ancestors, the Molla Wallabies, were pursued by fiery dog spirits, their desperate flight carving the cracks and caves we see today. Every ridge, every waterhole holds a story like this, whispered across 60,000 years of oral tradition. At the heart of these stories slithers the rainbow serpent, known by many names, Yulunga to the Yolngu, Kunmanga to the Murinpatha. This isn't just a creature, it's the architect of rivers and mountains. In one version, the serpent slept beneath the flat, barren earth until its stirrings cracked the land open, creating valleys where its body twisted and waterholes where it paused to drink. But the serpent also carries a warning. When the Gunwingu people speak of Ngaliod, they tell how it punishes those who break sacred law by summoning floods, a lesson echoing in modern climate shifts, where monsoons now drown lands once carefully managed by Aboriginal fire practices. What's extraordinary is how these stories double as survival manuals. The Wardaman people describe the Lightning Brothers, two ancestral spirits whose squabbles split the sky with storms. Their tales pinpoint exact locations like Yidamjuma's country, where iron ore deposits attract lightning, guiding generations to avoid these spots during monsoons. Scientists have since confirmed these areas have unusually high electromagnetic activity. Coincidence or proof that Dreamtime stories encoded environmental wisdom long before the word science existed? The Bindibu people's Emu Tracks myth explains celestial navigation, tracing the Milky Way not as stars but as the footprints of a mythical bird. Modern astronomers were stunned to find these narratives align with dark dust lanes in the galaxy, invisible to the naked eye unless you've memorized their stories. Even child-rearing lessons hide in these tales. The Jabwurrung's story of Tidalik the greedy frog, who drank all the world's water until made to laugh, teaches sharing through the land's sudden rebirth when waters return. But Dreamtime isn't locked in the past. When mining companies recently sought to bulldoze a sacred site in the Pilbara, elders protested by reciting the songline of the Seven Sisters, a spirit trail stretching across the continent. Satellite imaging later revealed their songs matched underground water routes essential to the ecosystem. These aren't just stories, they're living maps, courtroom testimonies, and ecological treaties rolled into one. To hear them is to understand that for Aboriginal cultures, the land isn't something you own. It's something you belong to, a conversation started in the Dreamtime that never truly ended. In the shadow of Babylon's ziggurats, where priests charted the paths of planets on clay tablets, a story pulsed through the streets, a tale so violent, so cosmically grand, it shaped an empire's understanding of the universe itself. This is the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic where order isn't born from harmony, but carved from the corpse of a primordial monster. At its heart writhes Tiamat, the chaos dragon, a being of saltwater and rage whose very body was the raw material of creation. She wasn't just a villain, she was the womb of existence, a swirling abyss that birthed the first gods before they turned against her. The myth unfolds like a divine coup. When Tiamat's children grow restless, she spawns an army of serpents and scorpion men to crush them. Enter Marduk, Babylon's patron god, a young, cunning deity who agrees to fight Tiamat only if the other gods swear eternal allegiance to him. What follows isn't just a battle, it's a cosmic dissection. Marduk rides his storm chariot into the fray, hurling winds down Tiamat's throat to inflate her like a grotesque balloon before piercing her belly with an arrow. Then comes the gruesome artistry. He splits her carcass like a clamshell, her upper half becoming the vault of heaven, her lower half the earth, her tears forming the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Even her eyes aren't wasted, they're squeezed to fertilize the soil with their waters, a grotesque yet poetic touch. But this wasn't just storytelling. The Enuma Elish was performed annually during Akitu, Babylon's New Year festival, where priests reenacted Marduk's victory to reaffirm the king's divine right to rule. Archaeologists have found cylinder seals depicting the moment Marduk stands over Tiamat's corpse, her serpentine body twisted into the shape of the zodiac, proof this myth bled into astronomy. Babylon's star maps even labeled constellations as fragments of her remains. The dragon's head became Draco, her tail coiled into Hydra. What's chilling is how the story mirrors Babylon's own rise. Just as Marduk usurps older gods to establish his supremacy, Babylon conquered rival city-states, absorbing their deities into his cult. Tiamat's name itself derived from Tiamtum, the Akkadian word for sea, hints at a deeper truth. Early Sumerian texts describe her as Namu, a benign mother goddess, but Babylon reframed her as a threat, a metaphor for the untamed waters of the Persian Gulf that constantly threatened their farmlands. By casting Marduk as the slayer of chaos, they justified their imperial control over nature and neighboring tribes alike. Yet for all its brutality, the Enuma Elish held a profound insight, one that resonates in modern physics. Tiamat's body, divided into opposing halves, mirrors the duality of our own universe: matter and antimatter, gravity and dark energy, all born from a single cataclysmic rupture. The Babylonians may not have known quantum theory, but their myth captured a fundamental truth that creation is never clean. It's messy, violent, and drenched in the remnants of what came before. Every time you look at the night sky, you're not just seeing stars, you're gazing at the scars of a battle fought in the dark long before history began. High in the mist-shrouded highlands of Guatemala, the Popol Vuh whispers a story of trial, error, and cosmic destiny, one where gods blunder like apprentices and humans emerge not from perfection but persistence. According to the Kayich Maya, the world began in silence. Only the sky and the sea existed, cradled in the coiled bodies of the plumed serpent and the heart of sky. But when these gods spoke the word earth, their first creations were catastrophic failures. First came the animals who couldn't speak their names in worship. Then came mud people crumbling, mindless effigies that dissolved in the rain. Next, wooden puppets walked the earth, but without souls, they became wild, attacking their creators until the gods sent a flood of boiling resin to wipe them clean. Enter the hero twins Hunahpu and Xbalanque, trickster demigods who carried the weight of creation on their shoulders. Their saga reads like a cosmic game, one that mirrors the brutal Mayan ball game where players ricocheted a rubber ball off hip pads, symbolizing the sun's journey across the sky. In one pivotal scene, the twins descend into Xibalba, the underworld, and outwit the death gods through cunning and athletic prowess, dodging bladed hoops, surviving a bat-filled cavern, and even using a decoy rabbit to cheat sacrifice. When the lords of Xibalba finally burn and grind their bones, the twins resurrect as fish, then as vagabonds who perform miracles, culminating in the ultimate reversal, tricking the gods into a fatal dance before ascending as the sun and moon. But the Popol Vuh's brilliance lies in its celestial choreography. The twins' victories align with Venus's cycles, a planet the Maya tracked with obsessive precision. When Venus vanished as the evening star, it was the twins entering Xibalba. Its reappearance mirrored their resurrection. Even the ball game's court became a microcosm of the universe, its stone rings representing portals between worlds. Archaeologists at Capon found courts oriented so Venus would appear directly overhead during solstices, while the Dresden Codex, a surviving Mayan text, contains tables predicting Venus's movements down to the hour. Yet beneath the cosmic spectacle, the Popol Vuh carries a raw human truth. When the gods finally mold humans from corn, a sacred crop sustaining Mayan cities, they're still flawed. Their vision is limited, forcing the gods to dim their sight so they can't rival divine knowledge. It's a paradox. Humans are made from Earth's perfect food, yet forever yearning, forever incomplete. Perhaps that's why this myth endured. In a civilization that watched stars like clockwork, the message was clear: creation isn't about getting it right the first time. It's about playing the game, falling, rising, and finding your place in the great celestial wheel. Before light, before land, before even the gods drew breath, there was chaos. Not the disorder we imagine today, but a yawning void, a raw chasm of potential that existed beyond time. This is where Hesiod's Theogony begins, with a universe so empty it's almost deafening. Yet within that nothingness something stirs. From chaos emerge the first primal forces: Gaia, the solid earth; Tartarus, the abyss beneath it; and Eros, the irresistible pull of creation itself. But unlike the Babylonian Tiamat or the Norse Ymir, chaos doesn't fight or shatter. It simply allows. It's a subtle distinction, one that reveals the Greek mindset. Creation isn't always born from conflict. Sometimes it's the quiet, inevitable unfurling of natural law. Gaia, now solid beneath an endless sky, gives birth to Uranus, the starry heavens without a partner, a detail that scandalized later philosophers but made perfect sense to the Greeks. The earth and sky clung together in a suffocating embrace, their children trapped between them. These were the Titans, 12 colossal beings embodying forces like the ocean's depth Oceanus and the sun's relentless gaze Hyperion. But the youngest, Cronus, would rewrite the cosmic order. With a sickle forged by Gaia herself, he ambushes Uranus, casting his father's severed genitals into the sea. From that violent act, Aphrodite rises from the foam, love born from mutilation, beauty from brutality. The parallels to Near Eastern myths are impossible to ignore. Just as Marduk slaughters Tiamat to fashion the world, Cronus overthrows Uranus to establish a new regime. Yet the Greek version lacks a clear moral winner. Uranus was a tyrant, but Cronus becomes one too, swallowing his own children to prevent their rebellion. This cyclical violence feels almost deterministic, a far cry from Babylon's triumphant order over chaos narrative. Even the Titanomachy, the epic war between Cronus's Titans and Zeus's Olympians, ends ambiguously. Yes, Zeus hurls the Titans into Tartarus, but their essence lingers. The earth still quakes when they stir literally. Greek earthquakes were said to be Titans straining against their chains. Hesiod's Theogony isn't just a family tree of gods, it's a meditation on powers corrupting nature. Each generation claims to bring order, only to repeat the sins of their predecessors. This resonated deeply with later Greek philosophers. Plato, in Timaeus, reimagines chaos as a realm of imperfect forms, while Aristotle saw the Titans as metaphors for humanity's baser instincts, forces we must overthrow to achieve wisdom. Even Stoics like Epictetus drew parallels. Just as Zeus tamed the cosmos through reason, so should we tame our inner chaos. But the most haunting legacy lies in the word chaos itself. For the Greeks, it was neutral and unknowable beginning, not something to fear. Modern science, though, has circled back to this idea. Cosmologists theorize our universe emerged from a quantum void, a fluctuation in an unfathomable nothingness. The Big Bang wasn't an explosion in space, it was the birth of space, much like Gaia emerging from chaos. Maybe Hesiod's vision wasn't just myth. Maybe it was the earliest intuition of a truth we're still unraveling, that from the void all things are possible, even us. At the dawn of existence, when the heavens and earth were still tangled like reeds in a marsh, two kami divine beings stood upon the floating bridge of heaven. These were Izanagi and Izanami, brother and sister, tasked by the elder gods with stirring the chaotic brine below. Armed with a jeweled spear, Izanagi dipped it into the waters, and when he lifted it, the droplets that fell from its tip hardened into the first island on Agoro. Descending to this newborn land, the couple performed a sacred marriage ritual, circling a pillar in opposite directions. When they met, Izanami spoke first, a breach of divine etiquette that doomed their first children to deformity, casting them adrift in reed boats. This wasn't just a creation myth, it was a lesson in order. The second time they circled the pillar, Izanagi spoke first, and their union bore fruit literally. Izanami gave birth to the 8 great islands of Japan, then to forests, winds, and rivers. But their most pivotal child was Amaterasu, the sun goddess, whose radiance became the emblem of the imperial family. Her lineage, traced directly to Emperor Jimmu in 660 BC, cemented the idea that Japan's rulers weren't just political leaders, they were living kami, divinely appointed. The Kojiki, Japan's oldest chronicle, meticulously records this genealogy, blending myth and history so seamlessly that for centuries no one dared question the emperor's celestial mandate. Amaterasu's legend took an even darker turn when her brother, the storm god Susanoo, ravaged her rice fields and hurled a flayed horse into her sacred weaving hall. In fury and grief, she retreated into a cave, plunging the world into darkness. The other gods tried everything to lure her out, roosters crowing, a sacred mirror hung in a tree, but it was the goddess Yuzum's riotous dance, stomping on an upturned tub until her clothes flew off, that made Amaterasu peek out in laughter. The moment she did, strong hands yanked the cave door open and light returned. This myth wasn't just entertainment, it became the blueprint for Shinto ritual. At Ai's grand shrine, Amaterasu's mirror is still enshrined, and Kagyura dances reenact Yuzum's performance during solstices, symbolizing the sun's rebirth. What's striking is how these stories mirror Japan's geography. The islands born from Izanagi and Izanomi's union are volcanic, much like Japan's real archipelago, forged from tectonic fire. Susanoo's tempests echo the typhoons that batter the coasts, while Amaterasu's hiding reflects volcanic winters, ash clouds blotting the sun for months. Even the couple's missteps carried meaning. When Izanami died bearing the fire god Kagetsuchi, her body festered with maggots and thunder gods, forcing Izanagi to flee her rotting corpse in the underworld. His purification in a river afterward became the basis for Shinto misogi water cleansing rituals still practiced today. But beneath the symbolism lies a raw truth. These myths acknowledged imperfection. Unlike other cosmologies where creation is flawless, Japan's origins are messy, fraught with taboos and mistakes. The divine couple's errors, speaking out of turn, producing deformed offspring, weren't erased. They were woven into the cultural fabric, teaching that even the sacred stumbles. Perhaps that's why these tales endured. They didn't demand perfection. They simply asked for reverence for the land, for the ancestors, and for the delicate balance between light and storm that shaped a nation. Before pyramids cast their shadows over the Nile, before even the first pharaohs united the two lands, there was only none, a boundless black ocean where nothing lived and nothing died. This wasn't just emptiness, it was potential itself, a primordial soup of chaos that the ancient Egyptians called the father of the gods. And from this endless water, something impossible stirred. A mound of earth rose, untouched by human hands, and atop it stood Autumn, the first god who had created himself out of sheer will. The Heliopolitan creation myth, carved into pyramid texts over 4,000 years ago, describes Autumn's next act with startling intimacy. He took his own essence into his hand and, through an act of divine self-pleasure, birthed the twin deities Shu air and Tefnut moisture. This wasn't just a metaphor, it was a sacred echo of the Nile's annual floods. Every summer, the river swelled with fertile silt, transforming barren land into lush fields, just as Autumn's creative act brought order from Nun's formless waters. The Egyptians saw their world as a mirror of this cosmic moment, where life literally rose from liquid chaos each year, but Autumn's story holds a darker edge. In later coffin texts, he confesses his loneliness before creation, whispering, "I was alone with none in inertness, I found no place to stand." This vulnerability humanizes the god, framing creation not as a triumphant act, but as a response to profound isolation. The imagery is deliberate. Autumn's primordial mound mirrors the Benben stone, the sacred rock worshipped at Heliopolis that symbolized the first land emerging from the flood, a symbol so potent it capped the pyramids, linking pharaohs to the moment of creation itself. The Nile's rhythms seep into every layer of this myth. Just as Autumn's children Shu and Tefnut gave birth to Jeb earth and Nut sky, the river's floods deposited the soil that fed Egypt's crops, while the vault of heaven arched overhead like Nut's star-studded body. Even the chaos of Nun wasn't purely destructive. Though it represented the void, Egyptians believed it still surrounded the ordered world, pressing in like the desert's relentless sands. Temples were designed as microcosms of creation, their floors sloping upward to mimic autumn's mound, their halls painted with marsh plants to evoke the fertile edge between none and order. What's haunting is how this myth shaped Egypt's view of death. Pyramid texts promise the pharaoh will reunite with autumn in Nun's waters, not as an end, but as a return to the source before rebirth, like the Nile's endless cycle of drought and flood. Modern archaeologists have found mummies buried with Nun bowls, filled with water to symbolize this regenerative chaos. In a civilization obsessed with permanence, the Egyptians understood a paradoxical truth: life doesn't resist chaos. It emerges from it over and over, as inevitable as the rivers rise. In the vast Pacific, where waves carve legends into the horizons of Aotearoa and Hawaii, the Maori tell of Rangi and Papa, Sky Father and Earth Mother, locked in an embrace so tight their children lived in perpetual darkness between them. This wasn't just a myth, it was a cosmic claustrophobia, a world where forests grew sideways, pressed flat against the earth, and whispers echoed forever in the cramped space between their parents' bodies. The children Tain, god of forests, Toherimatia, god of storms, Tangaroa, god of the seed, debated for ages how to free themselves. Some pleaded for patience, fearing the unknown. But Tain, the restless innovator, saw a future where light could dance on leaves and waves. With his feet on Papa's chest and his back against Rangi's ribs, he pushed with the strength of 1,000 kori trees until, with a groan that still rumbles in earthquakes, the sky tore away. The violence of that separation lingers in the myth's aftermath. Toherimatia, enraged by his siblings' betrayal, fled to the newly formed sky and hurled hurricanes at the earth, tearing Tangaroa's fish from the oceans and sending them scurrying into Tain's forests, where they became birds. You can still hear this feud in the crash of waves against cliffs, Tangaroa's relentless attempt to reclaim what was lost, but the most poignant detail. Rangi's tears, even now morning dew, is said to be his sorrow falling for Papa, while mist rising from the earth is her sighing breath forever reaching for him. What's extraordinary is how this myth shaped Polynesian thought. For navigators crossing thousands of miles of open ocean, Rangi and Papa's separation wasn't just lore, it was a navigational compass. By memorizing the precise angle where sky met sea, the hokupa, or fixed point, voyagers could triangulate their position without instruments. The Hawaiian chant Kumalipo even maps creation as a series of separations, darkness from light, sea from land, mirroring Rangi and Papa's divide. Archaeologists have found petroglyphs from Rapa Nui to New Zealand depicting this primal couple, their bodies etched into stone as a reminder. The universe began with a boundary, and boundaries define existence. Yet beneath the celestial drama lies an environmental ethos modern ecologists are only beginning to appreciate. The Maori didn't see Tain's act as conquest but as negotiation. Forests Tain's domain must remain upright to hold Rangi aloft. Oceans Tangaroa's realm must stay deep enough to cradle fish. When Maori tribes harvest timber, they still perform Yorurangi, rituals asking Tain's permission, acknowledging that every tree is a pillar in the cosmic architecture. Compare this to Western creation myths where humans subdue the earth, and the contrast is stark. Here, humanity isn't the hero of creation, it's the byproduct of a divine compromise, forever indebted to the balance its ancestors forged. Perhaps that's why this myth feels urgent today. As rising sea levels blur the lines between Tangaroa's domain and human settlements, as deforestation weakens Tain's grip on the sky, the old warning echoes: separation isn't dominance. It's interdependence. The Polynesians knew what we're relearning, that the space between earth and sky isn't empty. It's sacred, a treaty written in wind and water, and we break it at our peril. High in the thin air of the Andes, where condors carve circles around snow-capped peaks, the Incas told of a creator who walked the earth barefoot, shaping civilization with his bare hands. This was Viracocha, the foam of the sacred lake, the god who emerged from Lake Titicaca when the world was steeped in darkness. His first act wasn't to conquer or command, but to illuminate. Reaching into the heavens, he pulled down the sun and moon, setting them in motion across the sky like golden and silver discs on an eternal loom. But light alone wasn't enough. The earth remained empty, so Viracocha knelt beside the shores of Titicaca, gathering stone as an artist gathers clay. With meticulous care, he carved the first humans from bedrock, breathing life into their mineral bones and sending them underground to emerge from caves, springs, and mountains, sacred portals called pacarinas. These weren't just any stones. The Incas believed the very land was alive, its bones humming with Kame, the life force Viracocha imbued in his creations. When Spanish chroniclers recorded these myths, they noted how Inca nobles claimed descent from specific boulders or outcrops, literal kinship with the earth. At Sacsayhuaman, the fortress overlooking Cusco, massive zigzagging walls mirror the teeth of the puma, the city's spiritual shape. Each stone fitted so precisely that even today you can't slip a blade between them. Those stones weren't just building materials, they were ancestors, their Kame still pulsing through the mortarless seams. Viracocha's journey reads like a divine road trip. After sculpting humanity, he wandered the Andes disguised as a beggar, testing villages with acts of miracles and mischief. In one tale, he healed the sick with a touch, only to be stoned by ungrateful villagers, a crime punished when he summoned a firestorm from the sky, turning the attackers to stone themselves. These stories weren't mere fables, they reinforced Inca authority. Just as Viracocha judged the unworthy, so too did the Sapa Inca, his earthly representative, wield the power to reward loyalty or crush dissent. The myth's brilliance lies in how it mirrors Inca engineering. Machu Picchu's terraces aren't just agricultural feats, they're miniature recreations of Viracocha's sculpted world, each level a testament to humanity's covenant with the divine. The Intihuatana stone, a ritual sundial at the site's heart, wasn't merely a clock, it was a tether to the god's first act, binding the sun's movement to imperial will. Even the Inca road system, stretching 25,000 miles, echoes Viracocha's footsteps, a physical network connecting pacarinas where his children emerged, uniting the empire through shared origins. Yet beneath the grandeur lurks a warning. When Viracocha finished his work, he walked west across the Pacific, promising to return in times of chaos. This prophecy haunted the Incas when strange ships appeared off the coast in the 1500s, sails billowing like foam on the waves. Was Pizarro's arrival the gods' reckoning? Or had they misunderstood the myth all along? Today, as climate change melts Andean glaciers, Quechua elders whisper of Pachacuti, the world turning upside down. They watch the stones Viracocha left behind, waiting for the moment when the creator's footsteps might once again shake the earth. Long before the concept of good versus evil shaped Western thought, the deserts of ancient Persia hummed with a cosmic battle between twin forces, not just opposing but equal in power. This was the world of Zoroastrianism, where Ahura Mazda, the wise lord of light, waged an eternal struggle against Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit of darkness. Picture this duality not as a simple morality tale, but as the very fabric of existence. Every sunrise was Ahura Mazda's triumph, every venomous creature Angra Mainyu's sneering rebuttal. The universe, in this view, wasn't created perfect and then corrupted. It was forged in the tension between these two primordial wills, a balance as delicate as the flickering flames in Zoroastrian fire temples. The brilliance of this system lies in its moral urgency. Unlike creation myths where chaos is tamed once and forgotten, Zoroastrianism demanded active participation. Followers weren't passive observers, they were soldiers in Ahura Mazda's army, tasked with tending crops, defying Angra Mainyu's droughts, speaking truth, countering his deceit, and even burying the dead in stone towers to avoid polluting the earth, a ritual that persists today among Parsi communities. This wasn't just philosophy, it was a call to arms woven into daily life. Archaeologists have unearthed Achaemenid-era inscriptions where kings like Darius the Great credited victories to Ahura Mazda's favor, framing wars as extensions of the cosmic conflict. But the myth's true legacy lies in its eerie foreshadowing of Abrahamic eschatology. The Zoroastrian Frashocraty, a final showdown where light vanquishes darkness, resurrecting the dead in purified bodies, directly influenced Jewish, Christian, and Islamic end times visions. Think about the parallels: the messianic Saoshyant who battles evil mirrors Christianity's returning Christ, while Angramaniu's binding in molten metal finds echoes in Revelation's lake of fire. Even the concept of free will, central to Zoroastrian ethics as a choice between Ashad truth and drudge lies, seeped into Augustine's writings on sin. What's often overlooked is how Zoroastrian dualism grappled with the problem of suffering. Unlike monotheistic faiths wrestling with an all-powerful God allowing evil, Persian cosmology made pain intrinsic, a scar left by Angramaniu's venom seeping into creation. Yet this wasn't despair, it was clarity. The Gathas, Zoroaster's hymns, frame suffering as the friction where light and darkness grind against each other, producing sparks of moral courage. Modern scholars note how this mirrors quantum physics, wave-particle duality, two contradictory truths coexisting to form reality. From the embers of this ancient faith, a question lingers: what if darkness isn't the absence of light, but its eternal counterpart? The Zoroastrians didn't just invent cosmic stakes, they gave humanity a role in the story, a responsibility to tilt the balance. Every time you choose kindness over cruelty, you're not just being virtuous. You're fighting a battle as old as time itself. Deep in the cliffs of Mali's Bandiagara escarpment, the Dogon people have guarded a celestial secret for centuries, one that shouldn't have been possible without telescopes. Their oral traditions speak of the Namo, amphibious beings who descended from the stars in a vessel spinning on a whirlwind, bringing wisdom to humanity. But the real shock isn't just their otherworldly visitors, it's what the Namo allegedly knew. The Dogon described Sirius, the brightest star in our sky, as part of a triple star system, with an invisible companion so dense it contained all the weight in the universe. This mysterious star, called Potolo, spins on its axis every 50 years, they claimed. Here's the jaw-dropping part: modern astronomy didn't confirm Sirius B, a white dwarf so dense a teaspoon of its matter weighs tons, until the 1900s. Yet the Dogon's descriptions, passed down through generations, matched these discoveries with eerie precision, right down to the 50-year orbital period. The controversy erupted when anthropologists Marcel Griaule and Germain Dieterlen recorded these stories in the 1930s. Skeptics argued the Dogon must have learned about Sirius B from Western visitors, but Griaule insisted their knowledge predated European contact. Even more baffling, the Dogon knew Sirius B orbits its brighter sibling in an elliptical path, a fact only deduced by astronomers after years of complex calculations. Their creation myths even described Sirius C, a hypothetical third star astronomers are still debating today. Could this be evidence of ancient alien contact, as theorists like Robert Temple proposed? Or is it a case of cultural diffusion, knowledge trickling in from elsewhere? Critics point to flaws in the alien hypothesis. The Dogon's Namo share striking similarities with Mesopotamian Ons, fish-like beings who taught civilization, and even the Christian Eucharist symbolism of divine flesh. Some linguists argue Griaule, working through interpreters, might have unintentionally led the Dogon to confirm his own biases. Yet others counter that Dogon priests showed independent knowledge, like carving the Sirius system's orbits into sacred sand diagrams long before telescopes revealed them. What's often overlooked is how the Dogon contextualized this astronomy. For them, Sirius wasn't just a star, it was the source of Namo, the life force permeating all things. Their rituals mirrored celestial cycles. The Sigui ceremony, held every 60 years close to Sirius B's orbit, renews the world's balance, much like the star's dance maintains cosmic order. Modern astrophysicists might call this poetic coincidence, but the Dogon saw it as proof the universe speaks in patterns, from the microscopic to the galactic. Perhaps the truth lies beyond binary debates, whether the Dogon's knowledge came from celestial visitors, forgotten civilizations, or intuitive observation. Their story challenges our assumptions about primitive science. After all, indigenous Australians tracked celestial motions for millennia. Polynesians navigated by star pulsations invisible to the naked eye. Maybe the Dogon were simply the astronomers we're still catching up to. One thing's certain, in a universe where stars whisper secrets to those who listen, the Dogon remind us that knowledge isn't just about what we see, it's about how deeply we dare to look. In the frozen forests of Finland, where the northern lights ripple like a celestial river, the Kalevala spins a creation myth where the universe begins not with a bang but with a shaman's lament. Here, the world emerges from the shattered pieces of a cosmic egg, but with a twist that's uniquely Finnish. Unlike other egg myths where the shell merely forms land and sky, the Kalevala's egg explodes into a precise celestial map. Its yolk becomes the sun, the white transforms into the moon, and the scattered flecks of shell ignite as stars. Even the egg's darker fragments don't go to waste, they coalesce into the clouds, while the membrane stretches into the delicate veil of the Milky Way. This isn't just poetry, it's a cosmic blueprint, one that mirrors the Finns' intimate relationship with their harsh, star-studded landscape. What makes this version stand out is its deeply shamanistic heartbeat. The egg isn't cracked by a god's might or a giant's axe, but by Väinämöinen, the eternal bard and sage, whose songs carry the power to shape reality. Blind at birth, he sings the world into being from the void, his voice weaving spells that coax the egg from the primordial waters. This ties directly to Sami traditions, where Noidi shamans drum the northern lights into patterns, their channeled melodies bridging earth and sky. Archaeologists have found ritual drums among Baltic tribes carved with eerily similar imagery, eggs splitting into star clusters, their fragments arranged like constellations. The Kalevala's genius lies in its refusal to separate the spiritual from the scientific. When Väinämöinen plants the first forests, he doesn't just summon trees, he recites their Latin names, embedding botanical knowledge into myth. This mirrors Sami folk astronomy, where stars aren't just divine symbols but navigational markers. The Pleiades, for instance, guide reindeer migrations. Even the egg's destruction parallels the Finno-Ugric bear cult's rituals, where a hunted bear's bones were carefully reassembled and buried to ensure its cosmic rebirth. The message is clear: creation isn't a one-time event. It's a cycle sung into existence over and over by those who remember the words, yet the Kalevala harbors a melancholy undercurrent. Unlike triumphant creation epics, Väinämöinen's world is flawed from the start. The sun and moon are stolen by a witch's curse, plunging the land into darkness until the bard crafts replacements from fire and silver. This echoes Baltic stories where the heavenly bodies are trapped in a thorn bush or stolen by a devil, forcing heroes to bargain or steal them back. For Arctic cultures enduring months of winter night, these weren't just stories, they were survival allegories, teaching that light is fragile and must be fought for. Today, as Finland's ice sheets retreat and ancient star lore fades, the Kalevala's egg takes on new resonance. Climate scientists note how Arctic indigenous knowledge, like Sami predictions of weather shifts based on auroral patterns, often aligns with satellite data. The egg's fragments, once mythic, now feel like a warning. Break the delicate balance of the cosmos, and the stars themselves might slip through our fingers. Among the rolling hills and misty valleys of the Cherokee homeland, there's a story about a time when the earth was nothing but a vast, watery expanse, until the great buzzard took flight. According to the elders, when the animals above grew tired of the endless sea, they sent down the buzzard to find solid ground. Exhausted from his long journey, his massive wings began to drag, their powerful strokes gouging deep furrows into the soft mud beneath him. Where his wingtips dipped, rivers formed. Where they lifted, mountains rose. By the time he collapsed, his labor had carved the valleys and ridges that still define the Appalachian landscape today. To the Cherokee, this wasn't just a tale of creation. It was an explanation written into the very land they walked, a reminder that even the most rugged terrain bore the mark of a creature's struggle. What makes this myth stand out isn't just its vivid imagery, it's how deeply it's woven into Cherokee identity. The Great Buzzard wasn't just a sculptor of land. He was the progenitor of the Anitsiskwa, the Bird Clan, one of the 7 foundational clans of Cherokee society. Members of this clan were seen as mediators and visionaries, their role mirroring the buzzard's ability to soar between earth and sky. This connection between myth and social structure echoes across other indigenous earth diver tales, like the Muskogee Creek story of the crawfish who brought up the first mud from the ocean floor, or the Lenape's muskrat who sacrificed itself to create land. But while those creatures acted as humble laborers, the Cherokee's buzzard left an indelible physical signature, his weariness literally shaping the world. Archaeologists have found striking parallels between these myths and the geological history of the region. The Cherokee heartland sits atop some of the oldest mountains on Earth, their contours worn down by millennia of wind and water. To a people who lived intimately with the land, the buzzard's story may have been a way to explain the dramatic folds and hollows of their home, turning erosion into epic poetry. Even the buzzard's role as a scavenger took on sacred meaning. His cleanup of the natural world mirrored the Cherokee's own ethic of balance, where nothing in the circle of life was wasted. Yet the great buzzard's legacy isn't just etched in stone. It lives on in the Cherokee language, where place names still reference his flight, and in ceremonies where dancers mimic his movements, arms outstretched like wings sweeping across the earth. In a modern world that often separates nature from culture, this myth challenges us to see landscape as narrative and animals not just as creatures, but as co-creators of the world we share. After all, if a weary bird's flight could shape mountains, what does that make us the ones who walk in his shadow? High in the sacred groves of ancient Slavic lands, where oak trees whispered secrets to the wind, stood the towering figure of Triglav, the 3-headed god who watched over all realms at once. One face gazed eternally toward the heavens, another fixed upon the mortal world, and the last peered into the shadowy depths of the underworld. This wasn't just a deity of division, but of unity, a being who embodied the Slavic belief that the cosmos was a living, interconnected whole. His very name, meaning 3 heads, echoed in the triads of their world: sky, earth, and waters, birth, life, and death, past, present, and future. But Triglav's power wasn't confined to myth alone. His worshippers built temples atop towering mountains, most notably on the rugged peak of Szczecin in modern-day Poland, where priests interpreted his will through sacred horses trained to walk across spears. A stumble meant divine disapproval. These sites weren't chosen at random. To the Slavs, mountains were cosmic pillars, literal bridges between realms, much like the Norse Yggdrasil or the Hindu Meru. Archaeological digs have uncovered tri-faced idols carved from oak, their mouths stuffed with honey as offerings, a sweet bribe to keep the gods' tripartite gaze merciful. Then came Christianity's tide, and something extraordinary happened. Instead of vanishing, Triglav's essence split like light through a prism, refracting into the cult of Saint Vitus. This martyred boy saint, often depicted with 3 faces in early Slavic icons, became the new guardian of the 3 realms. His feast day, celebrated with bonfires and circular dances, mirrored the old solstice rites once dedicated to Triglav. Even the locations of his churches followed the ancient pattern, perched on high hills, as if the new faith couldn't erase the old geography of the sacred. The fusion went deeper than symbolism. In Serbia, farmers still whisper charms to Saint Triglav when planting crops, blending the saint's name with the old gods in a seamless pagan-Christian hybrid. Belarusian folklore speaks of a 3-headed dragon who demands tribute. its form a distorted echo of the original deity now cast as a monster. This wasn't mere syncretism, it was survival, a way for ancestral beliefs to cloak themselves in new symbols while keeping their ancient pulse alive. What's haunting is how these layers persist. During excavations at Wallen Island, archaeologists found a 12th century Christian chapel built directly atop Triglav's shrine, its altar stone repurposed as a baptismal font. The past wasn't erased, it was built upon literally and spiritually. Today, when Polish grandmothers tie 3 knotted ribbons onto tree branches for protection, or when Ukrainian soldiers carry amulets stamped with triple spirals into battle, they're unwittingly reaching back across 1,000 years to the God who saw all worlds at once. The heads may have changed, but the vision remains threefold, unbroken, watching. In the beginning, the Yoruba say there was only the sky above and endless waters below, until the supreme god Olodumare handed Obatala a simple snail shell filled with sacred sand, a golden chain, and a single instruction: create solid ground. Climbing down from the heavens link by link, Obatala emptied the shell's contents into the water, whispering incantations as the grains expanded into hills, valleys, and the first sacred city, Ife. But here's where the story twists. Obatala, usually the sober and wise sculptor of humanity, nearly ruined his own creation. Distracted by palm wine, a beverage forbidden during his divine task, he began molding humans with drunken clumsiness, leaving some with disabilities before his rival Oroshala intervened. This wasn't just a cautionary tale about restraint, it was the Yoruba's way of explaining human fragility, framing imperfection as divine in origin rather than punishment. The pantheon's brilliance lies in its fluidity. Each Orisha isn't just a god but a cosmic force with distinct rhythms: Shango's thunderous passion, Oshun's riverine sensuality, Ogun's fiery mastery of metal. These forces didn't stay confined to West Africa. When enslaved Yoruba were torn from their homeland, their gods sailed with them, hiding in plain sight behind Catholic saints. In Cuba, Obatala became Our Lady of Mercy, his white robes mirroring his purity. In Brazil, he merged with Jesus as Oxalá. This syncretism wasn't surrender, it was survival. Santeria priests in Havana still mark Obatala's feast day on September 24th, the same date as the Catholic feast of La Virgen de los Mercedes, offering white flowers and coconut milk to honor the creator who fell but kept creating. Archaeologists tracing this diaspora find startling continuities. A 19th century Taino-Caribbean amulet unearthed in Puerto Rico depicts a figure with Obatala's iconic white staff, yet surrounded by indigenous symbology, proof of cross-cultural reverence. Modern genetic studies reveal another layer. The Yoruba-derived Lukumi people in Cuba share DNA markers with the very regions of Nigeria where Obatala's cult flourished, a biological echo of mythic resilience. What's often missed is how these adaptations reclaimed power. In Trinidad's Orisha traditions, devotees used the same snail shells, now called Igba, to hold consecrated water during rituals, physically linking back to Obatala's primordial act. Haitian Vodou took it further, blending Yoruba Orishas with fawn spirits, creating entities like Danbola Wido, the serpent who coils around the world just as Obatala's chain once dangled from the sky. These weren't fractured faiths but living dialogues, proving that a god molded from a snail's shell could outlast empires. Today, neuroscientists study the Orisha's role in trance states, noting how rhythmic drumming, said to summon Shango's lightning, syncs with theta brainwaves, bridging myth and biology. Meanwhile, Black artists from Lagos to Brooklyn reimagine Obatala's story in murals and music, turning ancient slips into metaphors for resilience. Because if creation can rise from a drunk god's mistake, what does that make us? The flawed, the unfinished, the still becoming? Before Marduk slew Tiamat or Babylon's ziggurats pierced the sky, there was Namu, the Sumerian mother of all things, whose name literally meant the primeval sea. Unlike later Mesopotamian chaos monsters, Namu wasn't a force to be conquered. She was the dark, nurturing womb from which creation emerged of its own accord. Picture this, a vast, endless ocean with no shore, no horizon, just Namu's waters stretching into eternity. And from those depths she gave birth to An, the sky god, and Kai, the earth goddess, their bodies fusing together in a cosmic embrace that left their children trapped between them, much like the Greek Gaia and Uranus. But here's where Sumerian cosmology takes a startling turn. While other myths feature gods battling for supremacy, Namu's descendants needed no violence to bring order. Instead, she quietly appointed her son Enki, the trickster god of wisdom and freshwater, to sculpt the world not with weapons but with words. Enki's brilliance lay in his ability to organize chaos through sheer ingenuity. Cuneiform tablets from the 3rd millennium BC describe him filling the Tigris and Euphrates with life-giving waters by striking the earth with his spear, causing springs to bubble up from the abyss below. But his true masterpiece was humanity. According to the Enki and Ninmah myth, when the younger gods rebelled against laboring to maintain creation, Enki proposed a solution, fashioning servants from clay mixed with the blood of a slain god. This wasn't just a creative workaround, it was the first recorded instance of divine delegation, setting humanity's role as both burden and blessing. Archaeologists have found seal carvings showing Enki with streams flowing from his shoulders, flanked by trees and animals, proof that his role as architect of ecosystems permeated everyday worship. What's fascinating is how these early Sumerian ideas mutated across millennia. Namu's name appears in later Akkadian texts as Tiamat's precursor, her gentle waters hardening into the salty, vengeful sea monster of Babylonian lore. Similarly, Enki's freshwater domain, the Abzu, evolved into a shadowy underworld realm where he ruled as a chthonic judge of the dead. This linguistic shift mirrors political changes. As warrior kings rose to power, creation myths grew more violent, reframing primordial forces as enemies to be subdued. Yet fragments of the original survive. The Atrahasis epic, written 1,000 years after Sumer's fall, still credits Enki with saving humanity from a flood by whispering instructions to build an ark, positioning him as a rebel against divine wrath, a far cry from Babylon's rigid hierarchies. Perhaps the most poignant relic of Namu's legacy is the Urshima hymns, sung in Sumerian temples long after her cult faded. These songs address her not as a distant creator, but as a grieving mother watching her children twist her gifts into tools of empire. One tablet reads, "She who bore the heavens now weeps in the reeds, for the rivers run thick with the toil of those she shaped." It's a reminder that even the oldest stories carry echoes of loss of a time when the universe wasn't wrested from chaos, but gently cradled into being by a goddess whose name we've nearly forgotten. Beneath the crimson mesas of Arizona, where the desert wind carries whispers of the ancestors, the Hopi speak of a journey through 4 worlds, each one a crucible that forged humanity's resilience. It begins in the Tukpela, the first world, where people lived in harmony with the Kachinas, spirit beings who taught them sacred songs and the art of weaving. But discord crept in, and the Hopi say the few who remembered the old ways were led by Masu, the caretaker of fire, through a sipapu, a portal like the hollow reeds that still dot the southwest's arroyos into the second world, Tokpa. This wasn't just a migration, it was an evolution. Petroglyphs near Ore depict these layered realms as concentric circles, with spirals symbolizing the sipapu's winding path. Archaeologists have found kiva pits in Choco Canyon and Mesa Verde lined with precisely such symbols, their floors dotted with small holes representing these portals to the underworld. The Hopi's third world, Kuskaza, fell to floods and greed, a cautionary tale etched into rock art showing stick figures fleeing rising waters, images that mirror geological evidence of ancient megafloods in the region. What's haunting is how these stories intertwine with prophecy. Hopi elders speak of Pahana, the lost white brother, who will return with a missing piece of a sacred tablet to herald the end of the Fourth World, our current era, marked by environmental collapse and moral decay. They point to petroglyphs near the Little Colorado River showing a figure with a hunchback, interpreted as a backpack or technological burden, as a warning of this impending reckoning. Modern researchers note eerie parallels. Uranium mining contamination near Hopi lands mirrors the MYTHS Chinese letter of roads that bleed, while climate change-induced droughts echo the elders' warnings of rains that never come. Yet the Sipapu isn't just a relic. During the Wuwuchim ceremony, dancers emerge from a floor opening in the kiva, reenacting humanity's ascent. The symbolism is visceral. Each world's trials weren't punishments but initiations, refining humanity like clay in a potter's hands. When a Hopi child is born, cornmeal is sprinkled near the hearth, tracing the path back to the Sipapu, a reminder that every life carries the weight of those four worlds. In an age of ecological crisis, the myth's message feels urgent. Survival isn't about escaping the next world, but learning to enter it with humility. Deep in the mist-shrouded groves of the ancient Celts, where druids chanted beneath gnarled oaks, there bubbled a cauldron unlike any other, the Dagda's great vessel, brimming with a magic so potent it could resurrect the dead. This wasn't just a cooking pot, it was the beating heart of Celtic cosmology, a symbol of endless renewal that whispered of a world where death wasn't an end, but a return to the cosmic stew. Picture this: warriors slain in battle dipped into its depths would emerge whole again, their wounds sealed, their spirits unbroken, but the Dagda's cauldron wasn't unique. Across Ireland and Wales, cauldrons appeared in myths as gateways like Bran the Blessed's cauldron, which could restore life but not speech, leaving the revived mute as the grave. Every time these stories were told by firelight, the message was clear. Existence wasn't a straight line, it was a circle, a wheel turning through seasons of life, death, and rebirth. This belief pulsed through the Celts' most sacred rituals, especially Samhain, the festival that would evolve into Halloween. When the veil between worlds thinned at the end of October, cauldrons weren't just for cooking feasts, they became portals. Offerings of meat and mead were cast into them, not just to feed the living, but to nourish the dead who wandered back to visit. Archaeologists have unearthed massive iron cauldrons in bogs across Europe, often filled with animal bones and shattered weapons, likely remnants of these liminal feasts. The Gundestrup cauldron, discovered in Denmark and etched with gods and rebirth scenes, even depicts a figure submerged in a cauldron while warriors watch, as if awaiting their own transformation. Then came King Arthur, and the cauldron's myth evolved. In Welsh lore, the hero Bran the Blessed, whose name means raven, gives his sister a cauldron of rebirth, which later resurfaces in Arthurian legend as the Holy Grail, a vessel not of blood but of eternal sustenance. The parallels are impossible to ignore. Just as the Dagda's cauldron could feed armies with endless porridge, the Grail nourished with divine grace. Both promised immortality, both were guarded by otherworldly keepers, and both were lost to time, waiting for someone worthy to rediscover them. Even the witches of Macbeth, stirring their bubbling pot, owe a debt to these older myths, their cauldron a shadow of the Dagda's, its magic twisted but still potent. What's haunting is how these ideas persist. Modern pagans still place cauldrons on their altars during Samhain, filling them with water to reflect the faces of ancestors. Neo-Druidic rituals invoke the Dagda's vessel as a metaphor for personal transformation, a reminder that we, too, are ingredients in a brew far larger than ourselves. Because if a cauldron could hold entire wars and resurrect heroes, what does that make us? Not just flesh and bone, but stories simmering in the great pot of time, waiting for our next turn to rise. Among the rugged peaks of ancient Armenia, where the morning sun sets volcanic stone ablaze with light, there thundered Vahan, the god of fire and war, whose very name meant the victorious one. Unlike the serene sun deities of other pantheons, Vahan roared into existence with a dragon's blood already on his hands. According to the Book of David by Mopses Kornatsi, the medieval historian who preserved these pagan tales, Vahan's birth was anything but ordinary. The heavens convulsed, the earth split open, and from the void emerged a flaming infant with hair of fire and eyes like molten copper. And before he took his first breath, he was already at war, ripping through the belly of a cosmic serpent that had coiled itself around the world, choking the dawn. This wasn't just a dramatic origin story. Vahan's dragon slaying echoed through Armenian cosmology as a primal act of ordering chaos. The dragons, or vishaps, weren't mere monsters, they were embodiments of drought and darkness, their thick scales said to be forged from the hardened tears of captive storms. Petroglyphs found near Mount Ararat depict these serpentine beasts with wings unfurled, their tails knotted around celestial orbs, symbolizing their grip on the natural order. When Vahan tore them apart, his victory wasn't just military, it was agricultural. With each dragon's death, rivers burst from their carcasses, irrigating the arid plains, and the first vines of Armenia's sacred grape harvest twisted skyward from their spilled blood. Fast forward to the 4th century, when Armenia became the first nation to adopt Christianity as its state religion. You'd expect Vahan's legends to vanish under the weight of the cross, but the opposite happened. The dragon slayer simply shed his pagan skin and slipped into the robes of St. George. In the Varagavank Gospels, a 10th century Armenian manuscript, George doesn't just spear a dragon. He stands atop a vishap identical to those carved into prehistoric standing stones, his pose mirroring Vahan's iconic stance. Even the fiery halo around George's head seems borrowed from Vahan's flaming locks. This wasn't coincidence, it was cultural alchemy, a way to keep the old gods breathing under the censure of a new faith. But the most startling survival lies in Armenia's landscape itself. High in the Jegam Mountains, shepherds still guide flocks past Vishap Stone's massive basalt monoliths shaped like dragons, some dating back to the Bronze Age. Originally erected as altars to appease the beasts, these stones were later recarved with crosses, their serpentine forms baptized into Christian symbolism. Modern geomagnetic surveys reveal something astonishing. Many of these stones mark underground water sources, suggesting they were waypoints for ancient rituals to summon rain. Vahan's battle, it seems, was never truly over. It just shifted from myth to hydrology, with the land itself as the battleground. Perhaps that's why this myth endures. In a nation that survived empires, genocides, and earthquakes, Vahan's struggle isn't just a story, it's a blueprint for resilience. Every time an Armenian farmer tends his vineyard or a priest chants over a Vishap stone, they're reenacting the same eternal truth. Light doesn't just conquer darkness. It bargains with it, borrows from it, and sometimes wears its skin to stay alive. On the windswept steppes of Mongolia, where the horizon stretches uninterrupted for miles, the sky isn't just above, it's a living god. The ancient Mongols called it Kirk Tengri, the eternal blue sky, a deity so vast it had no temples, no idols, only the endless dome of heaven itself. Unlike the wrathful storm gods of other pantheons, Tengri wasn't a being to be appeased with sacrifices, but a silent, omnipresent force that breathed life into the grasslands and whispered destiny through the flutter of horsehair banners. To bow before Kirk Tengri was to acknowledge a simple, staggering truth. The sky was the original lawgiver, the ultimate judge, and the unshakable witness to every oath sworn on the open plain. This wasn't just poetic spirituality, it was the bedrock of Mongol identity. When Temujin, the boy who would become Genghis Khan, clawed his way from obscurity to unite the warring tribes, he didn't claim lineage from a mythical ancestor or a celestial battle. Instead, he spoke of a mandate from Tengri himself, a divine sanction written in the unimpeachable language of victory. The secret history of the Mongols, penned in the 13th century, describes how Genghis received a blue wolf spirit from the heavens, a sign that his conquests were ordained by the sky. His armies didn't march under banners of dragons or eagles, but under the tug, a standard of 9 white horse tails representing the 9 tribes of heaven. Every time their hoofbeats shook the earth, they believed Tengri's will was being done. Modern archaeologists have uncovered echoes of this belief in the most unexpected places. Among the ruins of Karakoram, Genghis's capital, they found no grand temples, just a single silver tree with pipes that once spouted fermented mare's milk skyward, a literal offering rising to Tengri. Even the Great Khan's burial site remains undiscovered, hidden not by cunning but by a tradition that demanded no marker disturb the sky's dominion over his bones. This was a faith so seamless with the landscape that its rituals were as natural as breathing, sprinkling milk to the 4 winds, tying prayer ribbons to sacred Ovu's cairns, or turning 3 times sunwise before a hunt to align with Tengri's cosmic rhythm. Yet Tengriism's greatest testament isn't in the past but in its fiery resurgence. After centuries of suppression, first by Buddhist lamas, then Soviet atheism, Mongolia's youth are reviving the old ways with a twist. In Ulaanbaatar's neon-lit streets, you'll find smartphones buzzing with apps that track lunar phases for Tengrist rituals, while heavy metal bands fuse throats singing with lyrics about the Sky Father's return. Politicians now invoke Kirk Tengri in speeches, framing environmental activism as a sacred duty to the Blue Covenant. Even Mongolia's space program, launching satellites to monitor the Gobai's fragile ecosystem, bears Tengrist symbolism, their logo a fusion of the Soyuz rocket and the horse-tail banner. But the most poignant revival is among Mongolia's herders, whose nomadic life has changed little since Genghis's time. As climate change dries up wells and brutal winters kill their livestock, many are returning to Tengri's rituals not out of nostalgia but necessity. They speak of the sky's anger, of broken balance, and of the old prophecy that when the last true horseman dismounts, Tengri will turn his face away forever. In a world racing toward extinction, this ancient sky god might just hold the key to survival, not through divine intervention, but by reminding us that the heavens were never ours to conquer, only to reverence. In the lush forests and sun-scorched savannas of Dahomey, the Fawn people tell of Mawu and Lisa, twin deities who weren't just partners but 2 halves of a single divine force. Mawu, the moon, embodied cool wisdom and the mysteries of the night, while Lisa, the sun, blazed with the unrelenting energy of daylight. Together, they formed a complete circle of existence, an androgynous balance that shattered the binary divisions many cultures imposed on the cosmos. Unlike Western myths where gods often ruled as solitary monarchs, Mawu Lisa's power flowed from interdependence, their union birthing not just the world but the very rhythm of time itself. This duality wasn't unique to Dahomey. Across West Africa, from the Yoruba's Orisha traditions to the Akans Nyame and Asais Ya, creator pairs reflected a cosmology where gender wasn't fixed but fluid. Mawu Lisa's priests often wore garments that blended masculine and feminine symbols, their rituals emphasizing that darkness needed light just as silence needed sound. Even the sacred drums of Vodun ceremonies mimicked this balance, the deep, resonant tones of the mother drum harmonizing with the sharp staccato of the child drum, a sonic metaphor for cosmic harmony. Archaeologists have unearthed 17th-century fawn artifacts depicting the twins as a single figure with half-moon and half-sun faces, their bodies wrapped in a serpent that symbolized the unbroken cycle of day and night. What's striking is how this theology shaped everyday life. The fawn calendar divided months into Mawu's breath, the rainy season, and Lisa's fire, the dry season, with farmers planting yams under the moon's gaze and harvesting under the sun's watch. Gender roles, too, defied rigid categories. Women could become Vodunsi warriors, channeling Lisa's ferocity, while men practiced intricate moonlit dances to honor Mawu's nurturing side. Even Dahomey's famed Amazons, its elite female military corps, were said to carry the twins' dual essence, strategizing like Mawu by night, attacking like Lisa by day. Yet Mawu Lisa's legacy didn't end with colonialism. In Haitian Vodou, the twins merged into the LWA Dambala Wido and Ida Wido, the rainbow serpent deities who still govern cosmic balance. Modern gender theorists point to these traditions as evidence that pre-colonial Africa held space for identities far beyond the male-female binary. When Fon descendants in Benin today celebrate the Zangbito festival, where masked dancers embody non-human spirits, they're not just performing, they're remembering a world where the divine, like the sky, was too vast to fit into a single shape. Perhaps that's the most revolutionary thread in this myth. In a global culture obsessed with dividing light from dark, masculine from feminine, Mawu and Lisa whisper an older truth, that creation thrives not in separation, but in the spaces where opposites touch. Beneath the frozen waves of the Arctic, where the ice groans like a living thing, there lurks Sedna, the one-handed goddess of the sea, whose wrath could snap the harpoon lines of even the bravest Inuit hunter. Her story doesn't begin in the depths but in betrayal. Once a mortal woman who refused an arranged marriage, she fled with a mysterious birdman, only to discover his true nature, a vengeful spirit in disguise. When her father rescued her in his kayak, the enraged spirit summoned a storm so violent that the terrified father threw Sedna overboard to save himself. As she clung to the boat's edge, he chopped off her fingers one by one, each digit sinking into the frigid blackness, twisted into seals, walruses, and whales, the very creatures the Inuit would hunt for survival. This wasn't just a horror story. Sedna's myth wove itself into the fabric of daily life, dictating rituals as precise as the cracks in the ice. Hunters whispered prayers before harpooning seals, acknowledging that every catch was a piece of Sedna's flesh. If taboos were broken like sewing caribou skins during seal season, Sedna's tangled hair, said to be the seaweed clogging fishing holes, would trap sea creatures, starving entire villages. Shamans undertook treacherous spirit journeys to comb her hair, soothing her rage with songs and offerings. Archaeologists have found ivory carvings in Thule sites depicting these underwater visits, some showing Sedna's skeletal hand gripping a shaman's wrist mid-ritual. What's haunting is how Sedna's lore mirrored real Arctic survival. The myth explained why marine mammals sometimes vanished. Sedna was withholding them out of anger, and prescribed solutions, confession of broken taboos, or dropping precious tools into the sea as penance. Even the way seals breathe through ice holes echoed her severed fingers poking through the ocean's skin. Modern ecologists note how these taboos inadvertently conserved species, banning walrus hunts during breeding seasons aligned with biological cycles Inuit couldn't have known scientifically. Yet Sedna's influence didn't freeze in the past. Contemporary Inuit artists portray her in sculptures with streaming hair made from recycled fishing nets, a commentary on ocean pollution. Climate activists invoke her name when petitioning against oil drilling, framing melted ice as her tears, because in a world where the Arctic is warming twice as fast as anywhere else, Sedna isn't just a goddess. She's a warning that the line between myth and survival has always been thinner than ice in spring. From the icy abyss where Sedna's fingers became seals to the fiery birth of Vahan tearing through cosmic serpents, we've journeyed across 25 astonishing visions of how the universe began, each one as diverse as the cultures that birthed them. The Aztecs saw time as a wheel of collapsing suns, while the Maori believed the sky and earth were lovers wrenched apart. The Dogon mapped stars they couldn't possibly see, and the Slavs worshipped a three-faced god who watched all realms at once. What unites these myths isn't just their creativity, but their shared heartbeat, a primal awe before the vast, glittering mystery of existence. Think about it. These stories emerged on every continent, yet they ripple with eerie similarities. Cosmic eggs hatching worlds, battles between chaos and order, creator gods sculpting humans from clay. Why do these motifs echo across oceans and millennia? Some scholars whisper of ancient, forgotten connections between cultures, while others argue it's simply humanity's collective imagination reaching for the same metaphors. But what if there's another possibility? Could these myths be more than just stories? Could they hold fragments of lost knowledge, vanished civilizations, cataclysmic events, or even whispers of celestial phenomena observed long before telescopes? Consider the Hopi's prophecy of a fourth world ending in environmental collapse, or the Norse Yggdrasil's warning of ecosystems poisoned at their roots. These aren't just quaint fables, they're urgent allegories that resonate unnervingly today. Maybe the truth lies somewhere between science and legend, not in dismissing these stories as fantasy, but in listening for the truths they carry in their bones. After all, weren't the Polynesians navigating by star pulses long before astronomers detected them? Weren't the Aboriginal songlines mapping underground rivers millennia before satellites confirmed their paths? So here's my challenge to you. Which of these cosmic origin stories gripped you the most? Was it the Yoruba's drunken creator shaping flawed humanity, or the Babylonian Tiamat's body becoming the fabric of the cosmos? Drop your favorite in the comments. I'd love to hear which myth made you see the night sky differently. And if you're hungry for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries, don't forget to subscribe. Because the universe's oldest stories aren't just about how we got here, they're about who we are and where we might be headed next.